Well, good morning, and I haven't even had time to sip at my coffee yet. As usual, the systems have woken up with a headache, which gives me a headache, which then gives you a headache, and oh my God, with the usual potpourri of corruption, accusations, denials, you name it. And you can almost guarantee that every day when you look at the headlines is all we've got is a blame, corruption, scandal. Anything about the things which we elect people to do? Anything about the things that we pay people to do? No, sir, no, ma'am. Not one little mention. The smoke screen goes on, and the country suffers for it more and more and more. And it is time that it stopped. It is time that it stopped. I was pondering yesterday is we are in the midst of an economic crisis, and yet the wealthy get wealthier, the richer get richer, the poorer take the kicking. Well, isn't it time, and I'm no left-wing socialist, believe me, but isn't it time that some of the big boys took a kicking? Oh, can't do that. They pay taxes. So do the rest of us. It's only proportionate. The principle is the same. And yet, here we have households struggling with payments, using credit cards and loans and overdrafts to get by. And what do the banks do? They pose as being the people's friend. And what does the government do? They kiss their bloody asses as if they are the people's friend. And yet, a bank such as Lloyd's, and perhaps it's a bit unfair to pick on them because so far they have not abandoned Lewis. Every other bank has. Lloyd's are still there, but that's partly because of the fact that we, the taxpayer, are still helping them recover from some of their excesses 10 years ago. They charge on an average credit card something like 28%. 28%! What do they give on the savings account? 0.05. Right? Where are we in terms of how there is a leveling, as they say?
I'm right behind you.
Right, you are. Well, come and sit down then.
Well, I can't stay very much. Just needed a quick word.
I'm having a rant. Yes.
No, you can't kidnap me on Facebook.
All right, and the fact of the matter is that there is an inequity here. Is where the big boys can charge huge percentages.
What for?
For their just for a credit card. Credit card average 28%.
Yep.
Sometimes 32%. And yet they made, because we're looking at, where are you? Here, let's get you in the picture. He's wrapped up against the cold. As the fact of the matter is that in 2021, I think it was, because the 2022 figures won't have come in yet. That particular bank made $6 billion profit. £6 billion profit on 23%, 27%,
Who's
28%.
made that money?
I made, yes, that's listed.
Who?
£6 billion.
Well, who? Which company?
Lloyd's.
Really? Yeah, that's outrageous.
Yes, and I haven't even looked at the other banks. So if you add it up, the billions that the banks have made, it was huge.
Do you know about banks in sense? It goes back to Roosevelt in the Second World War, where all the money is that the banks are too sacred to take on.
Yeah,
they're too sacred, and that's the same thing that's happened here. Look
that's right.
Lloyd's went bust. The taxpayer had to bail it out, right?
Yeah.
And so it goes on. And do you remember I don't know if you ever read the book about Murdoch and the brick in the wall, where one brick out of the wall by the banks, and the whole bloody thing turns.
Yes,
down.
that's right. Well, I was actually working for Murdoch at the time. Would you believe? Yeah, the only time I ever did. But I mean, nobody. The government are terrified of the financial sector.
Yeah.
The financial sector bullied them all.
It's absolutely awful, disgraceful that they've deregulated the city so that the bankers can put their salaries up enormously, when the poor nurses are actually having to actually skittle by on 4% and that kind of thing.
Yeah,
it's disgraceful. It's awful, and really, it's probably about capitalism. It's. I believe in capitalism, but I don't leave the excesses of it.
No, exactly. I'm exactly the same.
You've just actually said about the banks. Now, I told you I shall be talking to you tomorrow about energy matters. Right, the energy suppliers is a cartel. Okay, basically 6 companies: British Gas, EDF, French, Npower, German, E.ON, German, SSE. Well, no, it's not SSE anymore because it's gone renewable. Okay, so British Gas was pleading poverty earlier in 2023, and they were pleading poverty, and then I suddenly discovered that from January the 1st to the end of June, they made a £1.3 billion profit, right? That means not just fuel poverty for people, it also means destitution.
Yeah.
And what happened? Okay, so look, let's pick up it. British Gas, the CEO was awarded £2 million salary. Okay?
Yeah.
All the other big 5 got at least £1 million. And all the shareholders in these companies got a right to buy back shares at a very, very low cost. So it's absolutely outrageous. It's just profiteering. It's profiteering.
Absolutely.
Close corruption. Why doesn't the government do something about it? Because it doesn't do anything about anything, does it?
No, it doesn't. Actually, you're quite right. I mean, the other night when Stuart was moderating a session at the Speakers Festival here in Lewes. Tell us what that was about, because we actually do have some video which is being put together at the moment to show Stuart in his glory there. But tell us a little bit what that was about, because you were able to make this very point that night.
Well, what in my monitoring of the Well, I happened to be doing this because Christina Lamb is a great friend of mine and a former colleague. I first met her when she became an intern on the Financial Times, the foreign desk. I was foreign news editor. Uric Martin was the new foreign editor. That means he was the colonel and I was the major, but we both had our different roles. And Christina, who was a wonderful, beautiful woman, who's got a 16 award Journalist Awards. She's been made an OBE and a French, whatever it is, Legion d'Honneur or something, and something from America. And we went into this and talked about it, and went about how President Zia of Pakistan was killed, and she didn't know what the hell to do it. So she phoned me up in London and said, "What do I do? What do I do?" And I said, "What do I do? What you do is you ask yourself 4 questions. 5. what happened, where did it happen, when did it happen, why did it happen, and the age, how did it happen. So she wrote a story, and it became right on the front page of the Financial Times. And then so her career was off, and then it was great. So it was very good to actually to sort of see her and talk about all this.
It's a very good evening session.
And now what she's doing, of course, she's written 10 books, as you know. And the last one, well, Speakers Festival is more or less a book launch, isn't it? For
yes.
And she's done 10 books, most of them about Afghanistan and Zimbabwe and places like that. One book called Africa House was a terrific book. And she's now done a book called, what is it called, Frank? It was a Prince Regent Hotel in Shrewsbury, 4-star hotels, when she persuaded them to take on the poor and these people on the street. And this is again, you know, an absurdity really that people, that he had to give up his hotel to actually get the job. So it was a very important point to play, wasn't it?
It was, and you made the point in that discussion, is that we are in the hands of a group of so-called leaders who don't understand the word leadership, and actually every time they're hit with a crisis, flutter around like chickens with their head cut off, unable to come to grips with whatever should be done.
Well, you know, my take on this is, I told you this before, Boris, when he was Prime Minister, did one very shrewd thing. He filled the cabinet with second-rate people, because in his dreams, like all these nightmares, he packed it with all the second-rate people, so not one of them would usurp him. Well, that he got usurped anyway, but it wasn't because of that. And usurped,
Yeah. Well, I mean, it does mean to say that we've got a bunch of second-raters in charge. But to be quite honest with you, the opposition isn't much better.
Well, they haven't had the chance, have they? Because this wretched Conservative lot have been in power for 12 years.
Yeah, but
I think personally they are now suffering from fin de siècle. Now, you know what that means, don't you?
Francis, what?
French. It's called fin end.
Oh, fin, right, okay.
Fin de siècle.
Mm-hmm. The end of the child is the end of the
end of the era.
Yeah.
The end of the era, right? And therefore, and they're tired.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like, do you remember the Macmillan?
Yeah.
He tried because it was fin de siècle. They were just exhausted. I reckon these people seem to be exhausted enough when Mr. Zawi fights back for his political life over attacks, and Sunak called his ethics with my goodness gracious me.
But even if it's changed overnight, Stuart, is a good governance in Britain depends upon a strong opposition.
Quite so.
And that hasn't realised either. I mean, I think that it's time for us to look and try to reform the whole damn thing and get rid of the people that are going into politics at the moment.
Well, I disagree with you. I think two-party democracy, which is we've got now, works after a fashion.
Yes, it does. When I said get hold of the whole damn thing, it meant that the level of people that we get in there.
When you're talking about the opposition now, right, okay, the facts of the matter is that the kind of politics that you might be suggesting has been colonized by celebrity, right?
Yeah.
And therefore, people say, I'm not voting for the Conservative Party, I'm voting for Boris because he was very good on television. But it doesn't mean he can run the country, does it?
Exactly.
It's colonized. And the same with Trump, wasn't it?
Exactly.
And also, and that sort of leaves Keir Starmer in a very difficult, Angela Rayner. Keir Starmer, unfortunately, has developed a charisma bypass, which is a harsh thing to say, but a lot of people agree with me on that he's not. And Angela Rayner, she's got charisma coming out of her ears. So they should even make her leader of the Labour Party, in my opinion, or the guy who runs Manchester. What's his name?
Oh, yeah, I know.
Yeah.
He was a former Labour politician, wasn't he?
Yes, he was. Yeah. Now the thing about this our democracy is that it's now been contaminated by these celebrities.
I mean, the first thing I would do is to make sure that every candidate has been out working somewhere for 5 years, so they know what the hell life is all about. Instead of because what's happening is they are now being weaned almost like an apprenticeship, so they stay in the bubble, and they behave in the way that they're trained.
Look, we are a differential society, unfortunately, and I don't like difference because I feel it enforces the class system. But there is a way of actually of doing these things. I mean, 14 prime ministers we've had came from Eton, right? And this is all about Norman Baker's thing about deferring to the royal family, and that kind of stuff. So you've got a situation now where that Keir's got this reputation, and also I think
No, I'm laughing because you're the last one to show deference to anybody, and I mean, really, that I think that you make a bigger contribution to our society than the bloody lot sitting up in Westminster, to be quite honest with you. And I mean, you know how much deference I show to few people.
God bless you, Governor. God bless you. Take my hat off to
you. But you are absolutely right.
I'm right. I'm always right.
Tipping the cap has gone. If we're going to admire anybody and feel that they have something over us, it's only because they have achieved enormous things. And so many of the people that are sitting in Westminster have achieved nothing. In fact, all they do is they go through this apprenticeship, they get their seat, and immediately take off on these foreign aid junkets.
God bless them, don't they? And they get fantastic allowances, don't they?
They do indeed.
And the House of Lords is even worse. They spend most of their time sleeping in the chamber. Wow.
Yeah. But I still, going back to the banks, I can see a very simple, quick fix is halve the interest on credit cards, and you will immediately give each family in the country another 30 or 40 pounds a month at the very minimum, probably far more, and take some of the debt away that's dragging them down. And what are you doing? Cutting into $6 billion pounds worth of profit. I mean, it's about time that the banks had to scrabble for their money instead of making life so easy, particularly since I've never known us in such a situation where we pay for withdrawal of services, right? Money flows into the banks from governments, from ourselves, and so on and so forth. And what do? They close the banks, they close the ATMs, right? They try hard to make sure that you're not going to use cash. It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy.
The point about that is that closing that banks is just so you can save a huge amount of money by not paying anybody. Secondly, look at this. What have we lost here? NatWest, Halifax, Barclays.
Yeah.
Thank God for Lloyd's.
Well, thank God for the moment. Yeah. What do you want to bet that the next two say that they're going to leave?
Oh, don't speak like that.
But I think that it's very sad that we are in this sort of situation where the services are going. And, this morning's headlines, Stuart, are all about how they now assess and interview people to become policemen online. How the hell do you do that? No wonder we got paedophiles sticking out of every orifice.
Sorry, what do you mean? Police online?
They interview candidates online. There's no face to face. Yeah.
Oh, that's ridiculous.
I mean, it is ridiculous. But I spoke to somebody that I admire enormously the other day, but I expressed my disquiet over the computer generation and revolution, and he said, "Oh no, but computers do the job and so on and so forth." Well, they may do the job, but they do it without any interface. They do it without ever seeing the people that they're dealing with.
This is why I still go down to Lloyd's, because I've got an ISA with Lloyd's, and I only get some wonderful service, and I'm really very upset by the idea that it might close down. just trying to deal about my ISIS over the phone or online is just a nightmare.
That's right. But even so,
and that's
even
all told you. I don't know how to do online more or less.
No. But even if you go into the branch down here, whereas before, particularly when they had one up here on the high street, you had really, really considerate managers who would sit and chat to you, and if they had to say no to you, they said no on their judgment. Nowadays, you go in, they fill out a form, they tap it into the computer says no.
Yeah.
I mean, that is a ludicrous way of carrying on any business, let alone the financials. And then we wonder why we're in such a mess economically.
Well, it's bound to come.
Well, I mean,
I think
it's going to get worse, not better.
No, after 12 years, they're absolutely flat out. Now, this is a good point that there might be rainbow. They're 20 pence behind in the polls, and they've been that for a long, long time. Well, that's a lot of points against them.
Yeah, it depends which pollster you're looking at, though, doesn't it? The polls are notoriously inaccurate.
Right,
yeah.
Well, not all of them, but a lot of them are.
Yeah. I mean, and not only that, but of course, and you can understand it, each political party chooses the pollster that he wants to listen to. All right. I think it's time for us to start the People's Party or something like that.
No. Well, you and John May both. I can't bear the idea.
Right. Let's take a look at some of the headlines, because first of all, Zawi is the former chancellor, wasn't he? The finance minister is now. It turns out that he tried to hide £5 million of tax. And they've caught him at it. And once again, here we are. There's a nice little sleaze to keep us going.
Yeah.
But really, what bothers me about this, and I said it a little earlier before you came in, Stuart, is all these sleaze stories is they point the fingers at one another, they debated how awful they are, and I don't see a word about how they're addressing the problems that we've got. The economic problems.
Well, that's what
inflation has come down a little bit.
But they've got second-rate people running the country, of course. Now, I probably think that, his Labour Party are doing very, very good things. I mean, they went to Davos for investment, and they more so than Rishi Sunak, what's his name, is cuddling up to the EU for business people, for business purposes. And, so it's going to get sort of Europe collaboration. Yeah. For example, look at what damage Brexit has done to us. All the money that used to come into British university, right, is not coming anymore, and that's really problem. And why? Brexit is there's no benefit to come from Brexit in my view.
Yeah, well, I mean, I would disagree with you, but that's what this program is all about. Yeah, I mean, to be quite honest with you, if I was invited down the road to join a club that I knew was corrupt, inept, and so on and so forth, I would head away from it, and so would you. And yet, when we're invited to go back into such a club as Europe has become, we race towards it.
They're not trying to join a club with all their rules. They're trying to find ways of actually making contacts with businesses over there so that they can actually get some benefit from that. Yeah. And also, you've got this labour situation now where we haven't got enough labour because all the Romanians used to come and pick the peas and the fruit and God knows what else. And that's because of Brexit as well.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm old enough to remember when the Windrush people come in because school kids went to my school, and their fathers, they drove the buses, but they had to be imported because there wasn't enough bus drivers.
Yeah. I mean, I accept part of your argument, but also I think there's a labour shortage because so many people have got used to working from home is they don't bother to come out to go to work. I mean, what happened to all the people that were in work and aren't anymore? And yet the stats show us with full employment. I mean, that's a crazy thing.
Yeah, but that's absolutely a very, very dodgy bloody poll, isn't it? Very stats.
Well, exactly.
Well, yeah. Was it their lies, damn lies, and statistics?
That's for sure. Anyway, what the Mirror is saying is And actually, it's interesting that the Mirror would take this, because I've been regretting the fact that the Mirror has ceased to be a great newspaper. But it's taken this up today, and it says the only way is ethics. And it has a good point, a very good point. But those ethics, all that has got to go right across the board. No sense in just pointing one finger at one. The old phrase is, they're all at it. Good to see you, Stuart.
Huh?
I said, good to see you. You're not gone yet? Right.
I wanted to ask you a question.
All right, okay. Well, I'll carry on while you go and do whatever it is that you're going to do.
No, I want just a quick word with you.
Right, all right. Well, let's give me a moment then. And what we will do is we'll take a look at.
Oh, might as well say
Good morning. It's all happening here this morning.
Another cup of coffee when you get it. Decaffeinated. Hello. You can capture by Mr. No, really.
Just give me a moment or two. I'm just looking at something to give us a little bit of time. All right, here we go.
There's been a few new additions to the town over the summer.
Whole raft of new eating and sleeping places cropped up in Lewes over the summer. Most of them were in Cliff, but Coat is at the top of the town on the high street. So far, I've only been in for a cup of coffee, but they've been very welcoming, and I suppose that it looks as if it'll do very well. Give it a try. Then there is Aqua at the bottom of the town, attached to the Premier Inn, also new. I've been in there as well, and they were equally as welcoming and didn't mind that I just popped in for a cup of coffee and not a full meal. But Fuego is something else. I've only looked in through the front door. It's a new concept, of course, of cafe bar. Not new in the continent, I suppose, but not terribly frequent over here. And I haven't been in there because I'm a bit afraid I might go for the bar rather than the coffee. But one day I'll give it a chance. Anyway, some places new in Lewes over the summer and places for you to try.
I'm here in the village of Charleston, a charming, picturesque British village with a population of 500.
That's not Charleston, Keith. This is Charleston, South Carolina. A charming, picturesque village with a population of 120,000 in the United States.
What about this town, Boston? 120 miles north of London in England. Population, 35,000.
That's not Boston. This is the real Boston. Boston, Massachusetts, population 4 million.
What about this lovely little city, York? I suppose you Yankees have one of those too.
Yes, we do. Welcome to the new and improved York.
Now here's one you can't beat, London. That's London in England. Population, 8 million.
Okay, I'll give you that one.
Join us for a journey to different cities with the same name.
A new show comparing big American cities with the small British and European towns that share the same name.
We never should have let you win that little war, Melissa.
Actually, Keith, we beat you at 2 little wars.
What's in a name?
Coming soon to public television.
Little devil on my shoulder, telling me to hold on, telling me to go strong. The decisions that I'm going on, late nights, bright lights, wanna see the city tonight. Maybe I'll do it twice. I say fuck it tonight. That's right, little devil never seems to keep it on the level. Don't care if I'm going to hell, no. I'm gonna do the little devil's I'm gonna do the little devil's deeds, okay? That pain, I can't stop, no way. Gonna check in, really check out as soon as I feel okay. Late nights, bright lights, wanna see the city tonight. Maybe I'll do it twice. Maybe I'll say fuck it tonight, yeah, that's right. Little devil never wants to keep it on the level. Don't care if I'm going to hell, no. I'm gonna do the little devil's deeds. Oh, 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 oh.
Okay,
Whoa,
look at me.
do the little devil's deeds.
Okay, back again. Good.
All right.
Keep going. Well, the funny thing is that when you see it on television, they look at the camera and they look really funny.
This was what the prison looked like when the British Admiralty bought it to house the prisoners of war.
So they bought the prison and they made many adaptations to it. One of them, interestingly, they took the doors off the cells.
Good for freedom of movement, but not so good for privacy. The doors survive in the local museum, all that remains of the prison's interior. The prisoners were separated. The enlisted men, mostly Finns, Swedes and a few Ireland Islanders, put into the prison, 3 to a cell. But it was a different situation for the Russian officers.
The officers, very different case. They were billeted out amongst the gentry families of the town and surrounding areas, not just Lewis. They had freedom of movement, they had freedom of association, and they generally joined in, if you like, middle to gentry class society. So we have an account, for example, of the officers being very popular dancing partners at local balls because they could waltz so much better than Englishmen. There we go.
Not all the Russians lost themselves in the pleasures of the waltz. Many, like Georg.
He sat on the bank, while the river still chattered onto him, a babbling procession of the best stories in the world. That was the excitement that Mole experienced in the story Wind in the Willows. And indeed, rivers large and small everywhere all have many stories to tell. The River Ouse that flows through Lewis is no different. In fact, For much of the town's history, it has played an important part. Today, the river carries nothing but pleasure craft. But for a long time, it was a busy, bustling port. About a mile upstream from here is the village of Hamsey. It sits on a triangle of land which splits the river as it curves down towards the town. Hamsey is barely a village today. A few houses with the 13th century church standing in splendid isolation. But Hamsey was a Saxon port in the pre-Norman era. Historians estimate that over 1,000 people lived here, populating a port that saw ships sail up the Ouse to trade goods. There is no doubt that the Normans had a bit to do with its demise. The area was handed over to a Norman lord. But the community was attacked by an enemy it couldn't stop. An army of rats, which disembarked from one of the visiting ships, went ashore and infected the village with bubonic plague, the Black Death. Gardens, very soothing, and Lewis has lots of them.
900. Actually, in our flight guide, we show 650 meters, but there's a 235 meter overrun, so we're up to nearly 850 or so meters. We only permit single engine aircraft. We don't allow helicopters to come in. We don't allow twins to come in, and that's largely from a noise point of view. We're very conscious that we don't want to annoy our neighbours in the local villages, the 3 villages that are sort of up at the western end of the airfield, as it were. There's nothing down at the eastern end, but Swanborough Village, Iford Village, and Rodmell, and Kingston to a certain extent. We want to keep that.
What are the restrictions? I mean, presumably you don't have night flying or anything like that?
We don't have night flying. We don't have teaching. We don't have any flying for monetary gain on the war. The time we did it was 2 years ago. We get asked several times by the villagers when are you going to have another open day? Unfortunately, we've picked a day which is not very clement in terms of the weather. But out of that, we like to think we strengthened the relationship with the villagers because we took, ultimately we took children flying and doctors flying and village people, so quite a few of them have had flights with us from time to time. And we think that's important because we like to think that the airstrip and the Aero Club is an integral part of the community.
It's a tightrope walk on an ice age honey, and you can play that game, but it won't be funny for long.
the wire ahead, it doesn't matter. Skywalker, balancing high above the world tonight. Skywalker again.
Okay, well, I've got my night clothes on, so it's time to go to bed, time to say ta-ra. Before I go, I would like to ask for your help to make sure that we get Mirador right this time. We've had 3 goes now at trying to find out what community television should be all about, but let's enlist your help. Why don't you tell us exactly what you think that we should be doing? www.i2itv.com. Send us a the town. Vida Lewis is the magazine to find out what's going on very locally, but also there's this magazine, I think it's Sussex Style, and this will tell you what's going on around the county. 2 very good magazines. All right, bye-bye. Here's an apology. We turn out to be like every other damn television station. We got the weather wrong. It wasn't wet. It wasn't fine. It just turned out to be damn cold. Oh. Sorry. Jerry, where's my bathrobe? It's bloody freezing.
Well, there you are. That was a run through some things in the past. Some still hold true, others do not. But now, after taking that pause, so that we could actually review a couple of things, let's go back to the papers. And the Guardian, PM admits questions need answering on Zawi tax issue. So once again, sleaze hits his Westminster. The Financial Times, Stuart's favourite paper here, and what his headline is, once again, it looks at the Zawi thing. Zawi fights for political life over tax scandal as Sunak orders an ethics review. The Daily Star, well, what does the Star have to say? Tax row ex-chancellor looks set for the chop. You don't need a lettuce to see how this one ends, it says. The dear old Star. It finds it difficult to take anything seriously. The Times. The Met risks hiring rogue officers in online tests. Now, Stuart, that's the one that I was talking to you about. Is is what they do is the oh, good morning, Kevin.
Good morning.
How are you? Here we go. It's good morning, everybody. It's 9:33. I get to test early this morning. Kevin got out of bed especially just to pour this for me. Enough to make him turn a man to drink. But it is what the Met have been doing is hiring people online, not even seeing them. And as a consequence, it now turns out that all sorts of coppers are bent one way or another, and mostly that they've got paedophiles in the ranks. Now, this is where I really still I've been doing a thing called the Day of the Triffids, and I've said that the Triffids are ready to take over because mankind has lost control of computers. Computers are actually controlling mankind, and that's a big weakness. Now, what's the allegory here is the Triffids were a 1950 outer space giant or plant that took over the world. And it took us a long time to fight back and get rid of them. A novel by John Wyndham and Lucas Sparks. And the movie was made a few years later. And it's a terrifying movie. Because these creepy crawlies are everywhere and the population has been turned blind by a starburst. Now, I have always maintained that the Triffids never really did go away, that they are lurking, waiting for a sign of weakness in mankind so that they can take over again. And that sign of weakness to me is here. Here we are, and sensible people are saying, oh, no, computers, we have to rely upon computers. Yes, we do. But we need to control the computers, not the computers control us. So what are we getting? The computers are allowing pedophiles to get into the coppers' ranks. They're allowing the banks to stack up 50, 60 people in a row, having told them that they are going to get into serious trouble if they don't call the bank. It has become ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. And unless we get a grip and start to use computers, because what happens is I get similar letters from the computer at various institutions that were written 5 years ago. And somebody just pushes a button. They don't care whether it's appropriate to me or not. And it is stupid. And if we are going to let computers take over our life like this, we can expect serious trouble. And it's there around the corner. And what does anybody do about it? No, they'll be busy fighting about the sleaze and so on. As Stuart says, what we've got is we've got the second raters because Boris weeded out the first raters so that nobody could challenge him for the premiership. And the second raters took over without expecting to. And as a consequence, we've got a serious situation. And what do you want to bet? It won't change. If I applied to be a copper tomorrow, I'd be asked to do things online. I would never be seen by anybody until the first day on duty. I turned up in my blue serge suit, snapped a salute at the sergeant, and said, "I'm here." It's beyond right. Now here we are. Is computers sort out asylum seekers, doesn't it? No, it doesn't, because here's a guy who posed as a child to get in. In fact, he's a 21-year-old man. He'd already been found guilty of murdering a Royal Marine, and he killed 2 people in Serbia before arriving in the UK. He told border forward officers he was 14. The computer didn't know how to sort out whether he was telling the truth or not. It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. And if we're going to let this happen, then we can expect a lot more to go wrong with our society. Get a grip. Get a grip. Stop worrying about ice cake and champagne at Christmas. Stop worrying about whether somebody is okay. I'm not saying that avoiding tax is not a serious issue, but it cannot take the forefront when we are facing so many other serious problems. The Daily Telegraph: killer poses a child to claim asylum, and murder again in the UK. Right? We let a murderer slip through the gap. The only thing is there are lots and lots and lots of gaps because the computer cannot differentiate. You can't look into somebody's eyes and decide whether they're lying or not. It's crazy. It's absolutely downright crazy. The Sun. Showbiz split exclusive. Knowles X hires Harry's lawyer. Who cares? The Daily Mail. What the hell is the West waiting for? Boris Johnson takes front page on the Mail this morning. Is the article, the front page article, why the hell is the West waiting? What is it waiting for? Is by Boris Johnson, who of course is a former journalist. And he's writing and saying, listen, Ukraine needs our help now, right? Let's give them that help now and get it be done with. Because they've got Putin on the run.
Germans have got a problem because of the gas situation. They're heavily dependent on Russian gas. So maybe, I don't know, but on the radio this morning, they said that Poland has persuaded Germany to go ahead, and somebody else they yanked out from nowhere and said, yes, they will be doing German. But the German, they are, listen, about 30% dependent on gas from Russia. Their other source of energy, of course, is lignite, which is
well, that's a dirty
that is
coal,
very carbon emitting.
Yeah.
So that's not helping the planet.
No, it's not.
And anyway, so he reckons that the Polish are persuading Germany.
Well, apparently Joe Biden read the Riot Act to them as well. I mean, it's basically they said if you want to be part of NATO, you've got to live up to NATO's commitment.
Fine, so.
That's right. Of course, there is a funny situation though in Germany, isn't there? There is a sort of a national a conscience about what they did in the Second World War.
Absolutely, there's a total. And of course, the thing is that talk about the Russians coming. Do you remember the Stalingrad situation? Right?
Yes.
The Second World War, right? Hitler didn't have much oil, but the Russians did in the Caucasus, right? And they actually came down, and Stalin fired one of his best general, and that was replaced by Khrushchev. But the general was brought back, and he did the most amazing side flip right round the German army. It wasn't just a little sort of, side trip. And German army couldn't cope. Hitler couldn't cope. It presaged the end of the Second World War because he didn't have any oil.
Yeah.
And also, if you look in all the articles about the Russians, there's a thing the other day saying the Russians kept coming. And Napoleon, when he tried to get Russian, he actually was on record as saying, these Russians can stand any amount of pain. So when one lot of Russians get killed, another wave comes.
Right.
They can take pain. There's so many of them who are going to actually be cannon fodder.
I think that part of that was that they were a peasant economy. I mean, are they still a peasant economy, Stuart?
Well, Russia.
Yeah.
Well, it's been, but it does have. It's not an industrial state the way that China is, but it has got some gold, and of course, it's got oil and gas.
Got diamonds as well, hasn't it?
Yeah, diamonds, and but they don't really count. I mean, I think that there's oil and gas is their ace in the hole where they can actually make people do things.
Right. Okay. Well, that's Boris's front page, and that's primarily the headline front pages. Let's now see if we can find out if there are things going on locally that we should be aware of. It seemed to me that there are a couple of things. Here we go. A serious head-on crash is let's see, what is it? Blocks a major road. This road is blocked in both directions. Right, which road is that? Live A21 updates as head-on car crash shuts road in both directions.
That's my dad's Eastbourne, isn't it?
Right, the A21 in direction in East Sussex due to a serious head-on crash. Around 5:30 this morning, the road is shut between 2100 London Road and B289 Vinehall Road, causing delays. It just says the A21 East Sussex. Is that the one that goes to Eastbourne?
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
Yes, you go this way. It's in Kent, it's the A20, and it's M21.
Right.
And you get to the M23, don't you?
Well, then that's closed. Don't try to go that way. That's.
Here you go.
No.
Just read that.
I'll have to let you read it at the moment.
Right. That's what this is.
Hang on a moment. Just let me just take one look at this, Stuart, and then. Oh, that's still the car crash. Right. Okay.
You just missed that.
What have you got there?
On the side, one of the leading articles here is tank tactics. Poland move presses Berlin. Right, as we suggest, as I was with you and I was saying, protesters hold placards during a rally in Brussels yesterday, supporting the deployment of Leopard tanks and other military.
Protesters supporting the deployment. Yeah.
Poland's Prime Minister yesterday said he would ask Berlin to allow Warsaw to hand over some of its German-made Leopard 2 tanks to Ukraine, increasing pressure on Chancellor Olaf Scholz to follow suit.
Right.
Yeah.
So basically, the Allies, if you want to call them that, NATO, are putting pressure on Germany to provide what was it, 50 tanks that they promised?
I think it's about 300, isn't it?
Oh, was it?
Not this particular one, but I think they've now. But the thing about it's what we were talking about. Christina's launch, and you and I talked about before, that Ukraine could become like Korea, because the Korean War from 1950 to 1952, where the thing was divided, where the Chinese were supporting the North Koreans and America was supporting South Korea, and there was armistice things, but the war was never declared over after 70 years.
Yeah.
And it's still going on in a way, in a sense that the North Koreans are sending these nuclear things into the South. It's not the South China Sea, it's the Philippines, Japan basin, isn't it?
Right.
And then you could put this into a Ukraine context, that they will continue to have a war. This war would be war without end.
Yes.
Because the terrorist attacks, the increasing so forth and so on. So it will go on, but as long as Putin lives, the war won't be over.
No.
But you might get sort of like the RAA sort of situation.
Yes.
You have terrorism.
And I suppose even if it ended, Stuart, there would be the issue of Ukraine. Yeah. Does that stay with Russia, or does it go back to Ukraine, Crimea? Does that go back to
well, there is
Ukraine?
The eastern stuff is Russian speaking, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Putin has money annexed Crimea as well, and so forth.
And
so
actually,
Putin's goal in life is to restore the Soviet Union. He's already done Chechnya, hasn't he? He's done Georgia. He's got a huge number of troops on the Baltic state borders.
Yes.
Right? He just wants the Soviet Union
back as it was.
Be the big empire.
Yeah, big empire.
And not just little Russia, as it were.
Well, that's very true. I mean, I'm not so sure. The EU's policy in Ukraine was quite different on the Russian border to that in the Baltics.
Yeah.
You mentioned the Baltic states, and in fact, they spend their money quite wisely in the Baltics, so that people in Lithuania, for instance, and Estonia, and Latvia are quite sympathetic to being part of the EU. Whereas you're quite right, in eastern Ukraine, a lot of them still think in terms of the good old Soviet days.
Well, I've been to Estonia and Latvia, and they hate the Russians. And Estonia is really particularly funny because Estonia, there were a load and load of Russians there, right? And they actually at one stage, the Finns used to come across from Helsinki and to go to Estonia because the beer was cheaper. Okay, and also the Scottish football teams used to go to Estonia for what reason I just don't know. So anyway, the Russians got absolutely rat-assed, and by the end of the day, they were supplied with supermarket trolleys to go back across to Finland. But I mean, when you talk about Russia and these countries, it breaks my heart. Estonia is a wonderful place. It really is lovely, you know.
It's strange enough, it's the only Baltic state I haven't been to. The other two I've been to several times.
Tallinn's a very nice town.
Yes,
medieval
indeed.
town, isn't it?
Yeah. And actually, Vilnius is a wonderful town too. It boasts that it's got the biggest old town anywhere in Europe, and I can well believe that.
Oh, they've all got them. Have you been to Azerbaijan?
No, I've not been to.
They've got a lovely old town. Really.
Yeah. It's a very historic part of the. I mean, Armenia. I have spent a lot of time in Armenia, and Yerevan is one of my favourite cities too. I mean, it's
well, I've been there as well. They all wear black jackets, don't they? Black leather jackets.
Yes.
They go around.
It's a macho thing, I think.
Well, they must have their local bikers rallies, mustn't they? So they bring in, they get their Harley Triumphs, or I don't know.
Let's see.
Myself,
you know, your friends were talking about Kima Junction and the points thing, but apparently now there's a train, a fallen tree on the track near Lansing. It's closed the line over there. So the poor old railways, apart from the strikes, are having one hell of a time. Lansing, the southern services through the station will be cancelled, and Lansing is just a single line.
I don't fully understand the rail strikes, because some of the drivers get salaries of 65,000, don't they?
Yeah, that's right.
Well, it sounds a bit bizarre when you think what the nurses are getting or the teachers are getting.
But it's always been a strong union, hasn't it? And I mean, Mick Lynch is one of the old style
he's
union people.
He's after Scargill Mark II, isn't he?
Yeah.
God, he's right, his old cotton socks, old Scargill. He's still around, isn't he?
Oh, yes.
Making a nuisance of himself.
Yeah. Absolutely. And they don't lose their ideology either. Right.
But Margaret Thatcher was certain that she'd seen off the unions, didn't she?
Yes, she was. And she did for a while. But then everything goes in a circle, doesn't it?
Well, there's a cost to pay, and she deindustrialised the entire country. A disaster.
Oh, chaps. How are we doing? I just want to say I'm really sorry about not making it last week.
Oh.
I got messed up by the trains.
Right. Are you here now?
I got to get to work in a minute. I came in to grab your number or Sybil's number.
Right.
If you wanted to
rearrange. Now, just so you know who we're talking to, because this happens a lot on this program. There's people wondering what's your name?
Oh, I'm sorry. You live on the air at the moment. I'm John.
Hi. John is runs the Works Canteen, the Rights of Man.
Oh, I don't remember.
And you certainly dish up some very decent food. And he was going to come in last week, and I built him up and told everybody he was coming, and he didn't show up.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
So I went in the other day, and I said to his workmates, "Oi, where's John?" And they said, "Oh, he only works on such and such a day."
This man is a saint.
Anyway,
I lost my telephone in there, and this sainted man actually found it.
Put your head down so that you can see your face here.
Oh, right. Sorry. Yeah.
John, come on, lean right over my shoulder and get close down.
How's it going?
Yeah, it's there we go. Yeah, and you can you will be in sometime during this coming week, will you?
I would imagine so. Yeah, I came to see if I could get your Sybil's number. So
Okay.
We could,
I'll come over and I'll give it to you later in the day. All right.
Great.
Yeah.
Actually, we have got one.
So we can get you in here, and
we were doing the speakers thing in the the speakers festival.
Okay.
Yeah. And I interviewed Christina Lamb, who was a very famous journalist now, but I gave her a start at the Financial Times.
Cool.
So they were late getting there. Okay.
Yeah.
So I said, look, why don't you go up to the White Hart so we can have a rehearsal? Because I was doing the questioning, the interview.
Right.
I don't do interviews. I do conversations. So we couldn't get into Rights of Man. This place was closed. Where else did we try, Keith?
The Royal Oak was closed.
Oh, yeah,
that's being redone, isn't it?
Sunday night in a small town is an echo of a western, where you're waiting for the bad guy to come in. Anyway, off you go, John, because you've got to go to work. But
look at it this way, John. We can't send a letter. We can't get on a bus. We can't get on a train. We can't go to hospital, and we can't go to school. The only thing we can do is to retire to the pubs, but they're disappearing at a fantastic rate.
Yeah, that's it. We're looking after it.
Do you know how many there are now?
What in Lewis?
Yeah.
Can we count it on two hands yet, or is it still kind of three or
15.
four? 15.
Yeah.
So,
and which is the cheapest pint in Lewis?
Cheapest pint?
Yeah.
My 50p would be on Fuego Lounge probably. Where is the cheapest pint in Lewis?
Well, in one estimation, it's the Gardeners.
The Gardeners.
But I think the Con Club is cheaper than that.
What's a pint in the Con Club?
380, I think.
There's lots of talking about the pint.
Right.
But anyway, we'll be in to see you, and we'll arrange another day, okay?
Thanks a lot. All right. See you.
All right. Take care. Well, there you are. You see, it all happens. We're very much part of this community, and we have made a standing invitation to the businesses on the high street, and we did it also through the Chamber of Commerce. That any business wants to come in here in the morning and sit down and tell us about it for 15 minutes and extol their virtues to help boost their sales, they're welcome to. And we've had two so far, take up that offer. So my view is, if you can't get your finger out, don't start bleating about how badly off the high street is. What you have to do is to do something yourself. You can't sit back and let everybody do it for you. All right. Let's see what we've got cracking here now, and so we can take a bit of a breather. Okay, yes, here we go. Well, let's quickly take a look at Lewis from upstairs, shall we? Well, as there we had a quick look at Lewis, both from the air on the ground. We've had a fair smattering of things this morning. It's been a crazy morning. It's not been normal. But one of the things that is, once again, we seem to be having that problem, that dreadful problem with the internet again. And I have no idea why. So I think rather than to actually put through the torture of a bad program, is we can look ahead and back to the material that we've done over the last 24 hours. And I would ask you to do that because we need to take some urgent action. You know, in the big boys would say they're closing down the transmitter for a short period of time. We're closing down our transmission for a short period of time to see whether we can get the whole thing resolved once and for all. So until tomorrow, when Stuart will be back with Energy Matters, and we'll take a look at other things. I'll say to you a very good morning and toodle pip, and we look forward to seeing you tomorrow morning. And in the meantime, have a good day. A good day, as they say. And that's it for today. It's now, incidentally, 10 minutes past 4. No, it's not. It's 4 minutes past 10. And it's risen already to 5 degrees today. Mostly cloudy. The cloud cover is holding the heat in. So, and once again, not a bad day, but a totally different day to the one we had tomorrow. The one we had yesterday. What will we get tomorrow? Who knows? All right. Toodles.
Thank you.